Hello, dear friends. From time to time, some ufological or exopolitical news are published that changes the sense of reality and forces us to review our own paradigms. Opinion piece. Mirror Labyrinth. The Claws of Deception. Slave labor. Shape-shifting Ufos. Are we images of images? Divisions in the UFO community. Giant space ark under the Atlantic. There are UFOs that change shape easily. Pyramid-shaped UFOs captured by the Navy. Pentagon's new UFO office divides ufologists. Let's start. If what we call reality is a labyrinth of mirrors in which it is very difficult to orient oneself, this problem is multiplied when we move in alternative realities such as the reality of the financial reset and much more the absolutely elusive and contradictory UFO reality. From UFOs that change shape or are transparent or are upset from the logical point of view. This participation of other external intelligences in the evolution of mankind was masterfully described by Andreas Faber-Kaiser in his book The Clouds of Deception, an ancient extrahuman chronicle that was groundbreaking in its time and probably cost him his life on March 14th, 1994. Contact with other intelligences was called the Giant Masters, the dominators of the sky. Say Andreas, in quotes, human beings have gained access to magic and refuse to remain your food. We are taking off the blindfold you concocted to blind our vision. Your term has expired and our worship is over because we are no longer the deluded slaves of vain and vengeful creators. Andreas Faber-Kaiser was a Spanish ufologist and writer of German origin specialized in the investigation of the mysterious and occult aspects of history, especially in the relationship between the gods of antiquity and the current UFOs, having participated as a speaker at numerous international congresses dedicated to this type of subject both in Europe and America. His research trips took him to a large part of Europe, Asia, America and Oceania, and as a result of them he published some of his books, such as the polemic Jesus Lived and Died in Kashmir, 1976, a book where he exposed the possibility that Jesus of Nazareth had not died on the cross, but that once healed of his serious wounds caused during the crucifixion, he fled eastward in search of the lost tribes of Israel, and once in Kashmir had begun a new life, dying at a very advanced age or of natural death. In his last article, published in issue 56 of October 1993 of the magazine Beyond Science, under the title Confessions of Andreas Faber-Kaiser Between Life and Death, he acknowledged that he was a carrier of HIV without being able to explain how he could have become infected, and relating it to his research on the toxic syndrome, since both he and other researchers and doctors who tried to really advance in the origin of this strange ailment died of sudden and strange illnesses. He died at the age of 49 in the Can Ruti Hospital in Barcelona, Germany's Trias y Pujol University Hospital. The Game of Mirrors. When I was a child, I liked to play in mirror labyrinths, but there came a time when fascination turned into anguish and despair, when I couldn't find the exit. This situation forced me to control my own emotions in order to take things with patience and rationality until I found a way out. This difficulty represents life itself as an adult, where everything is very difficult, but everything can be solved with patience, hard work and dedication to solve the problems, one after the other, but not all of them at the same time, because if not, we get stressed. A mirror maze is a traditional attraction at fairs and amusement parks. The object of the game is to find the exit of a room where a more or less convoluted route has been arranged, surrounded by large mirrors. The reflection of some mirrors in other distorts the perception of space, making the visitor completely disoriented. The mirrors are usually at an angle of 60 degrees or a multiple thereof to each other, and often form a basic grid of equilateral triangles. Columns, vaulted ceilings, and chandeliers appear to have multiplied as in a kaleidoscope, producing the illusion of a huge labyrinthine building. To add to the confusion, some labyrinths, in addition to mirrors, include transparent panes of glass that reveal a part of the route that is not yet accessible. Sometimes the mirrors can be distorted, producing unusual and disconcerting reflections of the person walking through the labyrinth. Quantum mirrors. Reality would be a game of quantum mirrors, because all known objects do not have their own existence, but form a network of existential relationships that gives them a physical appearance. Expecting objects to have their own independent existence apart from us and any other object is actually a deep-seated assumption we make about the world. This assumption has its origins in the scientific revolution of the 17th century, and is part of what we call the mechanistic worldview. According to this view, the world is like a giant clockwork machine whose parts are governed by established laws of motion. This worldview is responsible for much of our scientific progress since the 17th century. But as Italian physicist Carlo Rovelli argues in his book Helgoland, the physical quantum theory that describes the universe on the smallest scales almost certainly shows that this worldview is false. Rovelli therefore argues that we should adopt a so-called relational worldview. Rovelli argues that since our world is ultimately quantum, we should heed these lessons. In particular, it is possible that objects such as your favorite book only have their properties relative to other objects, including yourself. Fortunately, that also includes all other objects such as your coffee table. So, when you go to work, your favorite book still appears as it did when you held it in your hand. Still, this is a dramatic rethinking of the nature of reality. From this point of view, the world is an intricate web of interrelationships, so that objects no longer have their own individual existence independent of other objects, like an endless set of quantum mirrors. Moreover, it is quite possible that there is no independent metaphysical substance that constitutes our reality, underlying this network. As Rovelli says, We are nothing but images of images. Reality, including ourselves, is but a thin and fragile veil, beyond which there is nothing, or that the ultimate nature of reality is emptiness, as instant philosophy says. Slave labor. We have all felt enslaved in our wage labor at some time in our lives, but the case at hand is the exposure of slave labor in a secret space program by Niara Terela Isley, according to Dr. Michael Saller. Niara served in the U.S. Air Force from 1979 to 1983 and specialized in automatic tracking radar, designed to look and track surface-to-air missiles and anti-aircraft artillery using precision laser technology. At Tonopah, she was asked to attempt to track advanced aerospace vehicles, including up to 10 flying saucers, with state-of-the-art automatic tracking radar. After completing the task assigned to her by her superiors, where the automatic tracking radar failed to lock onto the flying saucer craft, she was taken to the Area 51 S4 facility, where she was subjected to trauma-based mind control involving the erasure of her memories. She later recalled being used as a slave labor in a highly classified program involving Greys and reptilians. She also recalled being taken to the moon, where she and others were used as a slave labor. Niara also has memories of serving on Mars in a 20-year program. Her abuse only ended when a group of human-like visitors, with whom the Air Force wanted to have positive relations, recognized that she herself was starseed, thus earning her respect. Space Ark under the Atlantic. Joint U.S.-China mission to a giant space ark under the Atlantic Ocean. On January 10th, 2022, Dr. Saller's military whistleblower, JP, revealed that he had participated in a classified mission to a space ark located under the Atlantic Ocean off the coast of Florida, in the vicinity of Bermuda. This was the second space ark they had encountered on covert military missions. The first involved a space ark found on the moon. Osprey aircraft helicopters, a converted plane or tilt-rotor aircraft that has both vertical takeoff and landing capability, carried it to a large donut-shaped platform in the Atlantic, which was placed directly over a submerged space ark. It was at least a mile long, in the shape of an ovoid. He recognized the ocean platform as the same one he was taken to by a triangle-shaped anti-gravity spacecraft around 2014. There was an elevator that transported mission members from the surface to the interior of the spacecraft. The personnel were mainly from the US and China. China was allowed access to the space ark found under the Atlantic as a reciprocal favor after having allowed the US access to the space ark found by its Yutu-2 rover. The Atlantic ark is much larger than the one found on the moon. Both were activated when a large fleet of spacecraft arrived and packed in the vicinity of Ganymede. The whole ship had a light blue-green color that buzzed, turned on and off, and they didn't need those drones they used on the moon because this ship was more activated than the others. They found pure oxygen inside the spacecraft produced by plants. It's not like a fungus. It is like a type of algae plant, and one of the scientists was saying that this type of fungus plant glows in the dark attached to the wall, with a type of moldavite rock glowing on the wall. There was a time dilation effect that the mission members experienced inside the craft, and the air was compressed to ease their journey into the interior of the craft, which would have been pressurized to some extent to withstand the enormous ocean pressure at the bottom of the Atlantic. Once inside the space ark, the Mexican Aztec-looking members recognized some of the written hieroglyphs and reacted very emotionally to what they were seeing. The Mexicans began to point out on the wall this type of writings with which they were familiar. They were looking at it, touching it, crying, and happily repeating the phrase, Acuria Marte. They were like almost dancing because they saw this particular writing, a missing writing in their temples, or one of these Aztec writings that they were looking for. They were allowed to go in because it was sacred to them in that particular area. The Mexican Aztec group was allowed to go very far with the ark, presumably because their genetics and frequencies were acceptable. However, when the Chinese tried to do the same, they were blocked by the ship, which recognized some incompatibility. Could this have something to do with the materialistic philosophy of communist China? After they reached a particular place where there were very bright plants, they saw the Mexicans in the distance, but couldn't reach them. They shouted, but they couldn't hear them. They reached this place, and then the Mexican scientists who were there stayed with them, and the other Mexican left, and they didn't see them anymore. They disappeared forever. In conclusion, the trip inside the space ark, located under the Atlantic Ocean, is only the first step in the revelation of these arks. Their activation indicates that the timetable is now in play, and their revelation depends on the Earth Alliance. The location of the ark raises the question of any possible connection to ancient Atlantis, UFO sightings in the area, and of course, the famous Bermuda Triangle. Ufology. UFO stigma leaves vulnerable to espionage and drone attacks. UFOs pose a serious threat to national security, although popularly associated with supposed little green men from space. UFOs may also be real technologies developed by enemies to spy or conduct stealth attacks against the country. A Space Shifting Ufo. A JetBlue Airways pilot caught on camera a mysterious white object while flying at over 37,000 feet somewhere in Texas. The UFO then disappeared before reappearing and apparently merging with another UFO. In quotes, we waited for about 5 minutes, at which point it disappeared and then returned. It looked like two boxes melting into each other. The actual sighting was spectacular, beyond what the video shows. We were stunned, the pilot said. The pilot added that nothing showed up on air traffic control radar or the traffic collision prevention system. Defense confirms pyramid-shaped UFOs captured by Navy. Images of pyramid-shaped UFOs that were recently leaked were authentic, according to the Defense Department. Pentagon spokeswoman Susan Goeth said the Unidentified Aerial Phenomena Task Force, which is charged with investigating UFO sightings, was examining the video along with a set of UFO images. New Pentagon UFO office divides ufologists. The US government is back in the business of studying UFOs with the establishment of a new Defense Department research office that will study unidentified aerial phenomena But not all UFO believers or ufologists are excited about this. The creation of the new office, enacted just before a New Year's Day, has already divided the association of activists, researchers, and scientists looking for proof that humans are not alone in the universe. Senator Kristen Gillibrand, who spearheaded the bipartisan measure, said, in quotes, "Our national security efforts are based on air supremacy, and this phenomena represents a challenge to our dominion. We need a coordinated effort to take the control and understand whether this aerial phenomena belong to a foreign government or something completely different." We are few and far between. The Visions in the UFO Community by James Gilliland of SETI News. Why do people either love you or hate you? Because they either love or hate themselves. They are hurt and they are protecting all this onto me instead of taking personal responsibility. This is not an escape. It is founded in spiritual law. The more light you generate, the bigger the mirror, the more you reflect and magnify all that people love and hate about themselves. Wounds and traumas come to the surface, and guess who you project them onto? You cannot eliminate higher dimensional beings and their vehicles from science, religion, culture, history, or archaeology, which is replete with all the wisdom if you do the research. Despite this, instead of looking for similarities, there is a lot of infighting over who is right, in what is really a multiple choice question, with the correct answer being all of the above. Nor can we rule out blunt opposition. Shields are inflated egos seeking the fame and fortune over the truth. The UFO community has always been infiltrated by all of the above, but not only by visible but also invisible negative influences. Regenerated species such as reptilian race hybrids and artificial intelligence have always interfered with disclosure. Very few are aware of this, and even fewer know how to clear it. People keep asking me who is right, who is wrong, whose side are you on? I tell them I am on the side of truth. I'm not on the side of healing. I am on the side of healing. I am on the side of whatever best serves humankind and Earth. I am not on the side of attacking another person's truth or character in self-righteous way of not and calling it spiritual. I am not on the side of claiming that spiritually advanced teachers are also participating in this. It is said that the character of a human being is established by his actions. Those who attack has to ask themselves why this person is a threat. Sit with him and follow the emotions. Return to the single purpose of the soul without distractions. It takes a very wise soul and absence of ego to take this path. The need to be right usually wins out in most cases. Divide and conquer has always been the modus operandi of dark hearts. We all have a little bit of darkness inside us that lets them in. The way to avoid this is to own our own darkness and not engage in divisive actions and slander. Having been in the spiritual and UFO community for quite some time, I see people living in glass houses who cast most stones. You may want to keep them to shore up your own foundation. Their houses repeatedly collapse and they can't understand why. I am by no means saying that evil doesn't exist. What I'm saying is how can we be absolutely sure that we accuse others of what we ourselves are doing. I know that no matter what I say, this behavior will continue. It is so deeply ingrained in social consciousness and supported by the masses that it has now become acceptable of what some call normal. It is not normal or acceptable and not what we are in our heart of hearts. My wish is that people do not get caught up in all the division and destruction. Contact comes from within. We cannot maintain that contact while participating in the divisions and destructions. Love has always been the most powerful position, the ultimate power of the universe. Just as each individual has to make his or her own personal connection with the Great Spirit, it is the same to contact advanced multidimensional beings on a spiritual and technological level. Create a sacred space beforehand, focus on love, joy and bliss. Set your intention, qualify the contact. The mind in which you seek is the mind in which you connect. This is the path to success in contacting spiritually and technologically advanced beings, higher dimensional beings and ascended masters. We have to rise to the occasion. Imagine if everyone cleaned up, created a sacred space and held that frequency. What if it was done en masse and this message was broadcast everywhere? Thanks a lot, dear friends, and until tomorrow.